Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt that something wasn't right? Nobody said anything. Everyone was smiling. The conversation sounded normal, but somehow you could feel the tension hiding underneath. You noticed the fake smile, the forced laugh, the look someone tried to hide for just a second, and without anyone telling you, you already knew something was off. Most people would call that intuition. Some might even say it's a special gift. But what if it isn't? What if seeing what everyone else misses comes with a price that almost nobody talks about? Because once your mind learns to notice what's behind the words, it's hard to go back. You stop taking people at face value. You start catching little details others ignore. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you wish you weren't. It can leave you feeling alone, mentally exhausted, and wondering if life would actually be easier if you noticed a little less. So is this ability really a gift? Or is it a quiet burden that slowly wears people down? Today on Hidden Organ Secrets, we're going to explore why some people seem to see through everyone around them, the hidden psychological traps that come with that ability, and how to keep it from becoming the very thing that steals your peace. Some people seem to pick up on things almost instantly. They notice a tiny change in someone's voice, a smile that doesn't quite feel real, a quick look of disappointment that flashes across someone's face before they cover it up. While everyone else hears the words, they notice everything happening around the words. A lot of people think this is some kind of supernatural intuition. It isn't. Most of the time, it's just the brain processing small pieces of information much faster than most people realize. Think about it like watching a movie. Most people focus on the main characters and the story, but someone who's highly observant also notices what's happening in the background. They catch the little details that don't seem important at first, but end up explaining everything later. That's how their mind works in everyday life. When someone says, "I'm really happy for you," they aren't only listening to the sentence. They notice the pause before the words, the forced smile, the eyes that don't match the expression, the body language that tells a completely different story. Their brain connects those little clues almost automatically. It happens so fast that they usually can't explain why they feel something is off. They just know. But here's the part people don't talk about. They don't only notice that someone is lying. They often start seeing why that person is lying. Behind an angry boss, they may see someone who's afraid of losing control. Behind the person who constantly brags, they see someone desperate to feel important. Behind fake confidence, they notice insecurity that most people never stop to think about. At first, that sounds like an incredible advantage. You'd think understanding people this deeply would make life easier. In reality, it often does the opposite. The more clearly you see what's hiding beneath the surface, the harder it becomes to pretend everything is normal. You start noticing the cracks that everyone else walks past without thinking. You understand emotions people don't even admit to themselves. And once your brain learns to see people this way, it's almost impossible to switch it off. That's where the real challenge begins. Because seeing the truth isn't always the hard part. Living with what you see is. One thing I've realized is that people rarely tell you the whole truth with their words. Most of the time, what they're feeling shows up somewhere else. It's in their face, their eyes, their tone, or even a few seconds of silence before they answer. If you're naturally observant, you start noticing those little moments without even trying. Someone says they're fine, but their shoulders are tense. A friend laughs with everyone else, but their smile disappears the second nobody is looking. A coworker congratulates you, yet something about their expression feels just a little off. You don't always know exactly what's happening, but you can tell the words and the emotions don't line up. Over time, you begin to understand something important. People don't only hide the truth from others. Sometimes they're hiding it from themselves. The loudest person in the room may actually be the least confident. The person who always needs attention might just be afraid of feeling invisible. Someone who acts cold and distant may simply be protecting themselves because they've been hurt before. Once you start seeing those patterns, it's hard to ignore them. At first, it feels like a strength. You think you're finally understanding people on a deeper level. You make better judgments. You avoid fake relationships. You notice warning signs earlier than everyone else. But there's another side to it. The more you see behind people's words, the more you realize that almost everyone wears some kind of mask. Not because they're evil, not because they're trying to manipulate everyone around them. Most people wear masks because they're scared. They're scared of rejection. They're scared of looking weak. They're scared that if people saw who they really are, they wouldn't be accepted. That changes the way you look at people. Instead of asking, why are they pretending? You start asking, what are they trying so hard to protect? That's when observation becomes something deeper than simply catching lies. It becomes understanding human nature. Still, even when you understand the reason behind someone's mask, it doesn't make life easier. In fact, sometimes it makes things even harder. Because now you're carrying truths that other people either can't see or simply don't want to see. One of the hardest lessons people like this learn is that seeing the truth doesn't automatically make other people appreciate you. Sometimes it does the exact opposite. The world doesn't run on complete honesty. It runs on small social rules, polite conversations, and little masks that help people get through the day. Most of us wear those masks without even thinking about it. Then someone comes along who notices what's really happening underneath. Imagine you're talking to someone who acts like the perfect friend. Everyone loves them. They're charming, funny, and always know the right thing to say. But after spending just a little time with them, you notice something feels off. Every compliment sounds calculated. Every kind gesture seems designed to get something back. You can't explain it with hard evidence, but your instincts keep telling you that something isn't genuine. Now, imagine you say that out loud. Most people won't thank you. Instead, they'll probably look at you like you're being negative, judgmental, or impossible to please. Why? Because people usually believe what they can see on the surface. They don't see the patterns you've been quietly putting together in your head. From their point of view, you're creating problems where none seem to exist. The same thing happens at work. Maybe everyone feels sorry for a coworker who constantly complains about their manager, but after watching for a while, you realize the real issue isn't the manager at all. That coworker misses deadlines, avoids responsibility, and uses sympathy to avoid accountability. If you point that out, the room gets quiet. Suddenly, you're the cold one. You're the person who doesn't understand. You're accused of lacking empathy, even though you're simply seeing the situation from a different angle. The truth is, people don't like feeling exposed. When someone accidentally shines a light on the parts of themselves they're trying to hide, their first reaction usually isn't gratitude, it's defense. Some people get angry. Some deny everything. Some turn the conversation against the person who noticed the truth in the first place. That's why highly observant people often stop saying what they see. They smile, they nod. They keep their thoughts to themselves. Not because they suddenly became blind, but because they've learned that not every truth needs an audience. Over time, you realize something that changes everything. Being right isn't always the same as being helpful. Sometimes the wiser choice is to quietly collect the information, protect your own peace, and let people reveal themselves over time. You don't have to expose every mask you notice. Some lessons aren't yours to teach, and that's a difficult lesson to accept, especially when you know you're probably right. But protecting your peace is often worth more than winning an argument that nobody was ready to hear. This is probably the trap that's the hardest to notice, because at first it feels like you're protecting yourself. When you've spent enough time catching lies, fake behavior, and hidden motives, your brain starts believing that nothing is ever as simple as it looks. Someone gives you a compliment. Instead of just saying thank you, a voice in your head asks, what do they really want? A friend doesn't reply for a few hours. Your first thought isn't that they're busy. It's, did I do something wrong? Your partner seems quiet after work. Instead of thinking they're tired, your mind starts building stories. Are they pulling away? Are they losing interest? Is something happening that I don't know about? Little by little, your brain turns into a full-time detective. The strange part is that it doesn't even feel like overthinking anymore. It feels like being prepared. You tell yourself you're simply paying attention. You're avoiding mistakes. You're making sure nobody catches you off guard again. But after a while, you realize something has changed. You're no longer observing people. You're investigating them. Every conversation becomes a puzzle. Every silence feels suspicious. Every small change in behavior turns into another mystery that has to be solved. The problem is, once your mind starts expecting hidden motives everywhere, it also starts looking for evidence to support that belief. If you already think someone isn't being honest, you'll notice every tiny detail that seems to confirm it. The late text, the short answer, the awkward smile, the missed phone call. At the same time, your brain quietly ignores everything that points in the opposite direction. That's how fear slowly disguises itself as intuition. Eventually, you stop living in the present. Instead, you live inside possible futures that haven't happened. You imagine the betrayal before there's proof. You prepare for rejection before anyone has rejected you. You protect yourself from pain that may never come. Ironically, that protection becomes its own kind of suffering. You might avoid getting fooled, but you also miss something just as important. You miss peace. You stop enjoying simple moments because your mind is always scanning for danger. Even when life is good, part of you is waiting for the moment everything falls apart, and that's exhausting. The truth is, not every delayed reply is a warning. Not every strange look hides a secret. Not every quiet moment means someone is leaving. Sometimes people are simply tired. Sometimes they're distracted. Sometimes life is exactly what it looks like. Real wisdom isn't about spotting every possible threat. It's knowing when to stop searching for one. Because if you're always looking for cracks in every relationship, eventually, you'll stop seeing the parts that were never broken in the first place. There's another side to being highly observant that people rarely talk about. It's not just that you notice more. It's that you end up carrying things nobody else even realizes are there. You can walk into a room and immediately feel the tension between two people. You notice the forced smile, the disappointment someone is trying to hide, or the quiet exhaustion behind a simple "I'm fine." Most people move on without thinking twice. You don't. You keep seeing it long after everyone else has forgotten. The strange thing is, because you're good at reading people, you naturally adjust yourself to make others feel comfortable. You know when someone needs encouragement. You know when to stay quiet. You know when someone wants advice, and when they just need someone to listen. Over time, you become the person everyone leans on, the one people trust, the one who always seems to understand. But here's the part that hurts. Very few people ever stop and ask how you're doing. People assume you're strong because you always seem calm. They think you've got everything figured out because you're usually the one giving perspective. They see your confidence, but they never notice the weight you're carrying. And after a while, you stop talking about it. Not because you don't want help, because you've learned that explaining what's happening inside your mind is almost impossible. How do you tell someone that you're exhausted from constantly reading between the lines? How do you explain that your mind never really gets a break? That you're not tired from what people say, you're tired from everything they don't say? Eventually, loneliness starts showing up in a different way. You're surrounded by friends. You have conversations every day. People know your name, but almost nobody really knows you. You're listening to everyone else's struggles while quietly carrying your own. You understand people's fears before they say a word, yet you secretly wish someone would notice yours without you having to explain them. The truth is, being deeply aware can make you feel incredibly connected to people while also making you feel completely alone. That's why it's so important to remember this. Understanding other people's emotions does not mean you have to carry them. You are not responsible for fixing everyone. You don't have to absorb every person's pain just because you can see it. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is show kindness, offer support if it's needed, and then let their journey remain theirs. Because if you spend your whole life understanding everyone else while ignoring yourself, one day you'll realize you've become the person who needed compassion the most and the only one who never received it. If you're someone who notices everything, here's one lesson that can completely change your life. Just because you see something doesn't mean you have to do something about it. That sounds simple, but it's surprisingly hard. When you're good at reading people, you naturally want to point out what's wrong. You see someone being fake. You notice manipulation. You catch a lie before anyone else does. Part of you feels like you should expose it. But ask yourself this: will speaking up actually make the situation better? Or are you just trying to prove that you were right? Those are two very different things. One of the biggest mistakes highly observant people make is believing every truth needs to be shared. It doesn't. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is quietly take in the information and move on. Maybe you realize a coworker isn't trustworthy. Good. Now you know who not to depend on. You don't have to announce it to the whole office. Maybe you notice someone is pretending to impress everyone around them. That's their choice. You don't have to pull the mask off. Think of your awareness like a GPS. Its job is to help you make better decisions, not to control everyone else's journey. Once I understood that, life became much lighter. I stopped treating every situation like it was my responsibility to fix. I stopped wasting energy trying to convince people of things they weren't ready to see. Some people only learn through experience, and that's okay. Your job isn't to save everyone. Your job is to protect your own peace. So the next time your instincts tell you something feels off, don't ignore that feeling. Notice it, store it, learn from it. Then ask one simple question. Does this actually require my energy? If the answer is no, let it go. Not because you didn't see the truth, but because you've finally learned that peace is often more valuable than being right. Here's something that took me a long time to understand. Not every mask is a lie. Sometimes it's survival. When you're good at reading people, it's easy to become frustrated with fake behavior. You start wishing everyone would just be honest, direct, and completely authentic. But the more people you meet, the more you realize life isn't that simple. Think about it. The person who constantly talks about their success may not be trying to impress anyone. They might just be desperate to feel like they're enough. The friend who acts cold could actually be terrified of getting hurt again. The coworker who always smiles may be doing everything they can just to make it through another difficult day. People don't always hide because they're trying to fool you. Sometimes they hide because they're trying to protect the parts of themselves that still haven't healed. Once I started looking at people that way, something changed. I stopped feeling the need to expose every weakness I noticed. I realized kindness isn't pretending the mask doesn't exist. Kindness is seeing the mask, understanding why it's there, and choosing not to rip it away. That doesn't mean you ignore unhealthy behavior or let people take advantage of you. It simply means you stop expecting perfection from people who are still carrying old wounds. The second lesson is just as important. You have to stop trying to control every possible outcome. This is where many highly observant people get stuck. They believe that if they analyze enough, predict enough, and prepare enough, they'll never get hurt. But life doesn't work that way. No amount of overthinking can guarantee that someone won't disappoint you. No amount of analysis can completely remove uncertainty. At some point, every relationship requires a choice. You either keep trying to control the future, or you decide to live in the present. If your instincts tell you that something feels off, don't ignore them. Take note. Stay aware. But don't let one possibility steal today's peace. Maybe your relationship won't last forever. Maybe it will. Maybe someone will eventually let you down. Maybe they won't. You simply don't know yet. Real life always comes with risk, and that's okay. Think about a rose. You can spend all your time studying the thorns, measuring how sharp they are, and calculating the chance of getting hurt. Or you can slow down, appreciate the flower, and accept that every beautiful thing carries a little risk. That's what emotional maturity really looks like. It's not becoming blind. It's seeing clearly while still allowing yourself to trust, to care, and to enjoy the moment anyway. Because the goal was never to stop noticing everything. The goal is to stop letting everything you notice control your life. If you've been nodding along through this video, maybe you've realized something. The problem was never that you noticed too much. The real problem is carrying everything you notice as if it were your responsibility. Your ability to read people isn't a flaw. It's not something you need to get rid of. In the right hands, it can become one of your greatest strengths. It helps you make better choices, build healthier relationships, and avoid people who don't deserve your trust. But real wisdom isn't about exposing every lie or proving you're right. It's knowing when to stay quiet, when to let go, and when to protect your own peace instead of trying to fix everyone else's life. The people who grow the most aren't the ones who stop seeing the truth. They're the ones who learn how to live with it without letting it harden their heart. So, let me ask you one question. Which of these 3 psychological traps do you struggle with the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone realize they're not the only one feeling this way. And if this video gave you a new perspective, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join Hidden Organ Secrets. We'll keep exploring the hidden patterns of the human mind, one honest conversation at a time.